Welcome back to an Off the Ball Network exclusive live as we recap 2022. It was an exciting year of sports, whether it be Olympics, World Cup. We got some new Super Bowl winners, some old NBA champions. It was an exciting year in sports. And so I'm joined by two great guys tonight from the Off the Ball Network to discuss it, starting with the Molo Cup himself, Mo Murphy from Up in Flames. Mo, how you doing tonight?
Yo, what's going on, bro? I know my connection seems like I'm choppy, so I don't really know what's going on. But yeah, glad to be here. Hopefully I'll stay here the whole time.
And then I'm also joined by a good friend at the network, Francis Carlota. How you doing, Francis?
I'm good. What's going on, guys? Mo, it's nice we've never done a pod together, Mo. I've never actually really met you. So it's good to actually see you.
Dang, we really haven't done one together. That's crazy.
That's
I know.
amazing.
It's the first time I've actually talked to you.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. Well, what better than just to sit back and have a conversation?
So
right? Yeah.
all we really wanted to do
Happy
here
holidays.
I was going to start by saying Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's to everyone out there. Was a very exciting 2022. But really looking forward to just chatting about what the year was like in sports, because I think we all come from maybe different backgrounds of maybe sports we watch and teams we support and stuff. So we wanted to go through, talk about some of the best moments from the year, biggest retirement, biggest breakout of 2022, and then biggest disappointment to cap things off, because we got to be doom and gloom heading into 2023. So I figured it would be best to start with Molo Cup himself with his three biggest moments in sports from 2022. What was your number three, Mo?
So my number three biggest moment in 2022, it was Ohio State starting off the year right, winning the Rose Bowl. And the reason why that was a big moment for me was because we had a lot of guys sitting out that had played prior, our disappointing year going 10-2. But it was like a look into the future of what next season would look like. And so we had our starting quarterback. We had some breakout stars in that game. Marvin Harrison Jr. made a name for himself. Smith and Jigba, who wasn't really able to play, still made a name for himself and gave us at that moment something to look forward to as far as a true superstar wide receiver. So that was just a big moment for me, because it was like I wasn't that excited until I started watching the game. And then it was just like, look at it as, instead of like a consolation prize, look at it as like, this is a look into the future of what next season will hold. So like, and then the Rose Bowl, I feel like gave us one of the best college football games, one of the year, just period. I mean, down to the wire. It was a great game. I think everybody watched the Rose Bowl, whether you're a fan of Ohio State, whether you wanted to see them lose, win, or just want to see a great football game. I feel like everybody can look back and genuinely be like, I might have watched the best college football game of the year watching that game. And I don't think that was the expectation going in. So that was a big moment for me, just being actually still be age final game of the season and have fun watching Ohio State in the Rose Bowl.
Okay. I figured you were going Ohio State at some point, because there's no real LeBron highlights from this past year. So you really had nowhere else to pivot to start out our show. Now, Francis, give me your number three moment of 2022.
Number three is John Morant's dunk over Malik Beasley. As you mentioned in the pre-show, I'm not going to have all three be John Morant highlights. Don't worry about that. But that is my number three. That his dunk over Malik Beasley in the first round against the Wolves. Just for me, it was the Grizzlies were playing such bad basketball for really three whole quarters. They looked lifeless. The whole city was confused. And it wasn't just that game. I mean, y'all remember that series. They were behind the eight ball countless times. They had to come back from behind to win games multiple times that series. It was really like a confusing thing, because we knew Memphis was the better team, but like why are they so bothered by Minnesota's length and athleticism and defense when in the regular season Minnesota wasn't that good of a defensive team? But nevertheless, Memphis had to come back, and it was this dunk, this John Morant dunk, that just absolutely lit up the whole city of Memphis, the whole FedEx Forum, and just ignited a Memphis Grizzlies run to start the fourth quarter and come back from a 13-point deficit and really just take full control of the series. And as we know, they won Game 6 in Minnesota. And this was Ja's moment. And yes, it was fantastic. It was phenomenal for Ja to have that poster dunk over poor Malik Beasley, who somehow was the defender at the rim in that moment. because Ja was guarded by Jaden McDaniels, and then Brandon Clark came up to set a screen, and Nas Reed was the man on Brandon Clark, which left basically no rim protection, and Ja just took advantage, dumped over Malik Beasley. It was crazy. But this is only number 3 because it happened in the first round of the playoffs. If this happened in the next round to help them advance to the Western Conference Final, or even the Western Conference Final or the final or whatever, then it would be higher. But this happened in the first round of the playoffs. So I have to give it keep it a little lower on my list. Can't have it too high because there are other moments throughout my list that happen in bigger situations. I'll leave it at that. But number 3, John Morant's dunk for sure over Malik Beasley.
Okay. So we're going individual team moments, it appears, for the first couple here. Now, mine, I went super broad moments of just like great sporting moments. So mine, I mean, I don't really have teams to cheer for. I wasn't going to go Duke losing to North Carolina in Coach K's last home game, Duke losing to North Carolina in the Final Four, any Lakers game this past year, you can throw that out the window. So, like, I don't have any great team moments. But I was happy when the Warriors won a title again. I really was, because for me, them being written off as like they're never getting another one, and then them just shocking the world, because I shouldn't say the world, because the only person that I knew at the network that actually picked Golden State as a potential champion that year was Mo, who's on this show. And just to see them go out, and Steph and Clay, and Clay wasn't even a big part of that run. Let's be perfectly honest. He was not great throughout that playoff run. They had Draymond on the defensive side, but I was happy for some of the other guys, like the Jordan Pooles of the world. Andrew Wiggins kind of rewrote the trajectory of his career, because he was deemed as, you wouldn't call him a bust as a number 1 pick, because you don't have like a long productive career like he's had so far, but you would say that he's like on the lower end of number 1 picks. And then he goes out, he's a first-time All-Star, and then he wins the title as well, was arguably their second most important player throughout that entire run, maybe third. So for me, I was excited to see Golden State go out and do it, mostly because everyone wrote them off. And I think that just showed the true grit that they had as champions. Now, I'll go to my second one as well. I love the Live versus PGA Tour saga that was 2022, because it's making golf exciting right now. Because golf for a long time, like, it's just an old boys club. You know, you'll have a guy that'll have a big season like a Scotty Scheffler, and then you're like, okay, like just another bland white guy that's going out and having a good season on tour. But to see the back and forth that they've had, and like guys jumping ship, and, you know, you got Rory firing shots at guys, and Phil doing the same, and Dustin Johnson's getting involved. I think it's just great for golf in general. And if you look at what it's actually created on the golf front, the PGA Tour guys are getting paid way more money moving forward. Like, just because of this entire Live saga, suddenly the PGA Tour found another $150 million that they can hand out to players next year. So
shocking.
I think that the competitiveness of having this alternate tour, and people will hate it because of where the money comes from and whatever else, but if anything, it's helped the game in a sense that guys are getting paid more. And I'm more worried about those fringe PGA Tour guys. I'm less concerned about the DJs and the Rorys who won like $30 million this past year. But those guys that are going to have these bigger purses that maybe get an exemption in, maybe they finish in the top 10, and instead of making 50 grand, they make 100 grand. Like, that's life-changing money for some of these guys. And I think that's what I was excited about throughout the year. I loved waking up every morning and just seeing like who's firing a shot now, like who's saying something about Live, and then, you know, this player's leaving and he's leaving for 150 million. Oh, this guy, he left for 200. Tiger turned it down for like $1 billion, which is crazy how much money they tried to throw at him, but he is enough. He's not really concerned about that. So that, for me, just that entire storyline throughout the season was great. I think it's great for the game of golf. Now we're going to see, heading into 2023, we've already seen that, you know, guys are allowed to play the Masters that are on the Live Tour, and that will upset some old heads out there. But what's going to happen with these other majors? Are they finally going to get to speaking terms between the two tours? My dream scenario is that we get a Live versus PGA Tour Ryder Cup. I think that'd be phenomenal. But if that happens, that would be my best case scenario for golf. Like, just ditch the President's Cup, because at this point it's just the US dominates, make it the Live versus PGA Tour every couple years, and I think we could have something special there. So, Francis, I'll go to you. What was your number 2 moment of the year?
Number 2 moment for me, and also just want to say, remember the amount of money that Charles Barkley turned down to be the announcer for Live. It was like 400 million, or that's just off the top of my head. It was something ridiculous that he was like, nope, I can't even call it for Live. Anyway, number 2 moment of the year for me was when the San Diego Padres beat the LA Dodgers in Game 4 to advance to the NLCS. That's my number 2. And look, I'm a Memphian, born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. But I live in San Diego. I've lived here for 4 years now. And this city doesn't really have much when it comes to pro sports. Actually, they only have the Padres when it comes to the major professional sports leagues. You know, the Chargers left. They don't have an NBA team. They don't have hockey all they have are the Padres. And this city loves the San Diego Padres. And they've been through so much of the past couple of decades of just really disappointment, irrelevance, and just embarrassment, really, not just from the team, but also whenever they look like they have a good roster, they just flame out and disappoint. And a lot of that disappointment came at the hands of the Los Angeles Dodgers. What's up, Walker? What's going on?
I had to come through. I just finished Morning Brew with Stu, so I wanted to come through and celebrate our year in review with everybody here. So.
Okay, keep going. Oh. You got the
yeah. So, like a lot of their issues have been done at the hands of the LA Dodgers. And the funny thing about this rivalry to me is the Padres hate the Dodgers. Padres fans hate Dodger fans, but the Dodgers don't give a crap about the Padres. They're like a bug that they're trying to flick off their shirt. They're like the little brother that the big brother is just annoyed by constantly. They don't care about the Padres. Well, they better care about them now because they whooped them in 4 games in what was one of my favorite sports moments of the year, because I watched the whole series. I watched each game, watched Game 4 live at a bar in San Diego full of Padres fans with a little bit of Dodgers fans here and there, but mostly Padres fans. And when they went down 3-0 at the top of the 7th inning, that whole bar was like someone died. It was like a funeral. Everyone was so depressed. No one was like speaking. Everyone was just quietly drinking, and it was so sad. And then it happened. They came back. They won 5-3. That whole bar just went to a frenzy. I was drunk as crap. I was just running around cheering and chanting. Like, I was leading chants. I'm not even like a massive Padres fan, but when I'm like really feeling myself, I'm loud. And I'm like leading Padres chants and clapping and high-fiving strangers that I'm never going to see again. It was an awesome moment. But not just for myself, but for the city of San Diego to finally beat the Dodgers. They lost to the Phillies in the next round, but they got something going, and it makes me happy to see for sure.
I love it, especially the bar story. I can relate to that because Canada at the World Cup, when they scored that first goal, that's probably the drunkest I've ever been at 9 a.m. because I was fired up and I needed a pint or two just to calm my nerves a little bit. And then when that Davies going in, the whole bar was going. So I get that feel when you have a moment like that, as big as that is. Now, we are joined by Walker Bailey as well, growing out the beard for 2023. Now, give me your third and second biggest moments of 2022.
All the moments kind of sucked.
Oh my god!
God, I have to actually think about it, because my NFL team is trash. My NBA team is legitimately probably the worst team in the league. My Premier League team is poor.
Oh wow!
My baseball team's not poor. We'll go with this. The Rangers signed Jacob deGrom a couple weeks ago. I legitimately jumped out of my seat when it happened. I jumped up and down and got visibly excited. I was walking out of the locker room to go and coach a basketball game, and I was checking my phone just to make sure, all right, there's nothing important that I need to tend to before we go and play this game. And the Rangers announced deGrom, and I stepped back into the locker room for a minute, and I was like, yeah, visibly celebrated. I was like, all right, now we'll go handle business. So yeah, deGrom was probably number 1. the Rangers did a lot in spending money. So the Blues lost in the playoffs. I mean, they suck. They're like the 24th best team in hockey now. I feel like I don't have any. Like I don't have any good sports moments. I guess Tottenham's qualification for the Champions League, like that whole run where they basically went unbeaten for like 2 months to get to that top 4 spot under Conte, the big North London derby win over Arsenal, with Rob Holding committing a felony, and then also like the 5-0 win over Norwich. And this
Your
is
win over Leicester.
Yeah, I mean,
your comeback, right? Wasn't that this year or was that last year? When
that was last year. That was last year.
Dang. That was last year. My
yeah,
bad.
all hail Steven Bergwijn, Ajax legend now. And then this is an easy one. Like the U.S. being in the World Cup, like actually watching my country compete in the World Cup was incredible. Like, was borderline emotional all 3 matches. Like, the win over Iran was awesome. Like, it was one of those where you were just almost sure that they were going to find a way to mess it up and screw it up, like everything we do, which would have encapsulated the year. But they did. They found a way to win and get to the round of 16, and like the round of 16 match against the Netherlands, like I know it didn't go well, but it was probably the most relevant match that they've played in the last couple of maybe ever in this country. So like just being, present and being like attentive for that was awesome.
All right, Mo, second best moment. What do you got?
I'm going with Golden State winning the championship. And that's because preseason I spent the whole offseason trying to convince everybody. Remember, this is when halftime chats were every morning. I'm at work. I'm arguing with Chris and Edgar and like, why is Golden State not expected to come out the West? Why can we not paint them as contenders? And I felt like that was like, after they won, I was like, I think a lot of people in here owe me an apology. Because I was basically, I had a very up and a very down. Because I said the Bulls could be contenders in the East. I didn't say they'd win the championship, but then I would like paint for why are we just counting the Warriors out? Like Clay's coming back. He should be healthy. At some point, he'll be back. Steph is still going to be Steph. They still had Andrew Wiggins. I mean, the team was loaded. So I felt like it was a no-brainer to at least call them a contender. So when they won the championship, I mean, it was just a big moment in 2022. Like Ken said, I mean, they were wrote off like, the end of a dynasty. They'll never bounce back the same. We start having health questions with Clay. Steph would be bound to miss a little bit of time now. He's kind of a little injury prone. I say he's hurt prone, not injury prone, because he's not always missing 4, 5, 6 months. May be back for the playoffs, but he does get hurt. He does get dinged up, have to miss a couple games here and there. He's already he's injured right now and isn't playing. But them winning the championship, I mean, basically to turn around and go from champions to underdogs and be able to do it again. And for me, it was for Steph. Like, Steph got what he needed by a lot of people in the media as far as he needed a finals MVP to validate his greatness. Like, there were a lot of people who felt like that would put a stamp on, the greatness that we've seen from his career and one of the greatest point guards of all time, the greatest shooter of all time. I think with that finals MVP, it boosted him up. Some people inside the top 10, some people at 10. Some people right outside, but they had him at 15, 16 prior. So I think that did a lot for Steph as well. And it went in excitement. Like, they didn't go quietly and win the championship. Like, they had that epic matchup against Memphis where it's kind of created a rivalry, at least for the next couple of years. Gave us a matchup to look forward to on Christmas Day, even without Steph. There was a little bit of trash talking before and after the game. So it kind of brewed up a rivalry that, that was fun. Watching them play against Luka was fun. Like a team who shouldn't have been there gets there and, of course, has to run into the Golden State Warriors. But then being able to go, and it kind of seemed like, I don't know about the odds, but it just seemed like the Warriors still were kind of underdogs going into the finals. Like, this is Tatum's time now. And, the young Boston Celtics guys entering their primes are going to get it done. And they looked really good on their run as well. So I think just them winning the championship, I think it was a big moment, and it was a big moment for Steph, who's a player I do love. Doesn't play for my team, but Steph Curry is a player that I do love, and I wanted to see him get that Finals MVP to put that stamp on anybody who had any questions about how great he has been or how much we should weigh his greatness without that finals MVP, even though we already know he's been robbed of one, but that's neither here nor there.
Okay, so judging by what we've already had, I think we know what number one moment is based off of our discussion pre going live. I think it's Messi winning the World Cup. I think that we're all in agreement that Messi winning the World Cup is the biggest moment of the year. And I know we kind of touched on it already. To me, I think this is the best World Cup of our lifetime. I really do. When you look at it, had the greatest final of all time. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Like, that France-Argentina game is going to be talked about for generations. You had a great underdog story in Morocco going all the way to, you know, as far as they went. We had Modric getting back to a World Cup semi again, you know, 4 years removed from going all the way to the final. And Ronaldo played like crap, which a lot of people love to see. So, I mean,
I didn't notice.
Bro, it's arguably the biggest upset in World Cup history as well early on when Saudi Arabia beat Argentina, right?
Yep.
Yeah, like that was because remember, you know, I'm a casual soccer fan, so I feel like this break it down a lot better on how great this was. So Saudi Arabia beat Argentina. First question I had to ask Ken, yo, is this the biggest upset ever? Because the way everybody's acting, I'm like, did I just witness the biggest upset? And Kim was like, yes, Mo. I'm like, okay, casual fan just asking questions here. We go through the World Cup, Morocco going. I'm like, when they won, I forget, was it going to the Final Four? And I'm like, yo, is this like one of the biggest surprise teams ever in history to make it to the Final Four? Here goes Ken. Yes, Mo, you casual. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm asking casual questions. And then I wake up, like, just to paint. We all wake up on Sunday. I know you guys are soccer fans. So you guys were more like into watching the World Cup final. You guys knew how great this game could have been. Messi, Mbappe, however you say his name.
There we go. That's right.
You got it.
You know, like I could tell it was like two superstars going against each other. Like it seemed like the superstar of old versus the guy who's got next. So it's almost like a passing of the torch moment, it seemed like. But then watching that game, I'm like, to be a casual soccer fan, that game, if you said, Mo, watch this game and I guarantee you'll like soccer, like that would be like, I'm glad I watched that game because it gained a way bigger interest in me in soccer. And then being able to talk to y'all on social media and all that, like understanding who these players are and this and that. And then to see, we don't get a lot of moments. A lot of people, the older you get, you'll probably have more of these moments, but somebody being able to, and I won't say it's widely regarded, but it seems like Messi put the stamp on the GOAT status. And so, like, it seemed like I don't know if he needed that World Cup for it. I know it's been argued whether he really is the GOAT or not. I know there's people in that conversation, but it seemed like 20 years from now, you'll look back and be like, he had that GOAT moment, like the Tom Brady coming back down 28-3 to win the Super Bowl. Like, I think that put the stamp on, okay, Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback we've ever seen. I didn't get to see whatever they would consider Jordan's moment. Some people who have, like, you know, LeBron has self-claimed that was my GOAT moment when he came back down 3-1. So if he does start to be widely regarded, then we did get to witness that as well. But just to be able to see all that and be a casual fan and wake up and be like, oh, I'm going to watch the World Cup on Sunday, but football's about to come on, so it's just like a little pregame. And to be like, that's the best thing I watched all day, including watching NFL all Sunday. Like, I thought it was crazy. Like, just to know that I watched something historic, the greatest World Cup, probably played in history, like just seeing history in the making, especially sitting back and not knowing much about it, like being a casual and catching up and seeing all the good conversations. And I'm like, yo, this is a world I might have to jump in. Like if soccer's like this, I might have to jump into that world. So that's just from a casual view. It's my greatest moment. And I'm not fully into soccer like that.
Yeah, no, imagine going from that and then you draw Brentford 2-2. What a world.
I think what's actually probably the most disappointing part about it is now it will feel like no game will ever live up to that again.
No game.
but the thing is, 3 of us will get up on Saturday morning and watch Tottenham versus
League, yeah.
Norwich at 5:30 in the morning or whatever time, just because it's on. But then someone like Mo would be like, yeah, like I'll tune into that game, and then it'll finish 0-0, and then you're like, I'm never watching soccer again. Why did I get up this early? I don't understand why I had to get up this early to watch this.
I got up and watched Tottenham play Brentford on Monday morning, the day after Christmas at 6:30 in the morning, and sat down and watched it. because I was like, man, I really missed the Prem. Like, I'm really excited to watch my team play. And by about the 53rd minute, Tottenham was down 2-0, and I was like, damn, I missed the World Cup. I was like, now I remember why in November I was so ready for this team to stop playing games. And now, yeah, but they're back. So,
all right. So
Yay.
with that, I think we've touched on everything World Cup related, unless Francis, go for it.
I want to say my number one because it is not Messi
What?
winning the World Cup.
Oh,
and
whoa.
the reason being is I got married December 16th.
Oh, okay.
The World Cup was Sunday morning, and that so it was not the day after, but 2 days after my wedding, and I couldn't watch the full final. I had to watch some of it on my phone. We went to brunch with my wife's mother, and they had it on a TV at the brunch spot, but where we were sitting, we couldn't see the TV, and I couldn't be rude and watch it on my phone because my parents were there. So like I couldn't fully immerse myself in the World Cup final. So for me personally, it is not my biggest sports moment of 2020.
What do you got?
My biggest sports moment, y'all. I mean, come on, y'all know me. My biggest sports moment of 2022 was the Michigan Wolverines beating Hawaii Rainbow War. No, just kidding. Come on, y'all. It's Michigan beating Ohio State. Y'all know me. This was the biggest sports moment of my 2022 by far. And I'm not doing this just because Mo's on here and Nick. No, I understand. I'm not. No. I'm not doing this because of Mo, and I'm not trying to be that guy. But it meant a lot to me. It was a big moment for me. And what made it also special was I always want to immerse myself in the game and be really into it. But we were texting in the Audible Network chat, and I was on the road. We did Thanksgiving in Chicago. And so me and my fiance drove from San Diego to Chicago, the whole road trip. And we drove back Friday night, Saturday morning to San Diego. And I planned the driving structure, like the driving schedule between me and my then fiance, and planned what time we left Chicago to get to our halfway point hotel around the Michigan Ohio around the Michigan Ohio State game. And so it just worked out that it was now Alex's turn to drive right when kickoff started, and I got to sit there and thank God for AT&T for having good reception in just middle of nothing Kansas for me to watch this game on my phone and experience. But to talk about the game, I didn't think we would win, just straight up. I didn't think Michigan was winning that game. Blake Corum being hurt, Donovan Edwards being banged up. I like JJ McCarthy a lot, but I would have been surprised if Michigan beat Ohio State at Ohio State with the weather being totally fine, with Marvin Harrison Jr. and CJ Stroud and their improved defense. I would have been shocked, and I think Mo agrees. I'm sure he was surprised by the outcome. I'm sure, and
disappointed.
The exact opposite happened. I mean, JJ McCarthy was fantastic. The run game was non-existent really in the first half, but they just kept grinding him out. And obviously the two long runs from Donovan Edwards. And we got to our hotel, and I'm just like celebrating like a madman by myself in the hotel room. And we brought our dogs, and our dogs are just like staring at me like, Francis, what are you doing? And I'm just so excited. It was fantastic. And there's still a lot of work left. Michigan still has to beat TCU. We'll see what happens this Saturday, and maybe we meet you again, Mo, in the championship game. How fun that would be. That would be something.
I'm hoping.
That would be something else. That would be incredible. Just as a sports fan, how sick would that be? But yeah, that's my biggest moment of the year because I couldn't fully experience the World Cup. So there you go.
No, I'm glad that we went to Francis so he could talk about that. I think that was a really smart decision that we made, and it made everyone on this call happy.
I'm good, glad.
Well, just speaking on that game, just real quick.
Yeah, please.
I think what makes it special for Michigan is like it put a stamp on like last year could have been considered a fluke, especially like if Ohio State won, like, oh, every dog has his day. And that was kind of the conversation going in. But now it put a stamp like, okay, the gap's closed. Michigan's here. Like this game means something from here on out, at least as long as Jim Harbaugh's there. You know, you're hearing a lot of rumors they could not be, but I feel like winning 2 in a row in the dominant fashion that y'all did for 2 years in a row kind of showed like the rest of the world, like the gap is closed between Michigan and Ohio State, at least for the next few years. If everything remains structured, Day is at Ohio State and Harbaugh is at Michigan, that it like closed the gap. And now this is a game and it's really either a toss-up or Michigan goes on their 10-year run of dominance, which I may not be able to deal with. It might not make it to 35 if that's the case, but we'll see.
We hope to see Mo back here by 2025 is basically
I
what
agree.
we're saying now.
There is
so
a like laundry list, and that may be understating it, of things that I would do for a Michigan loss on Saturday.
Well, I know, Walker. You're a big.
It has nothing to do with Michigan, for what it's worth. Like,
I know you're a TCU guy, so
yeah, you've been a TCU fan this year, so from beginning to end too. You started off the season, so
yeah,
can't knock you.
I get it,
fan.
All right, so let's chat about. There's some great careers that came to an end in 2022, and you know we found out even just today that at the end of this year, JJ Watt's going to be done in the NFL, one of the best defensive players of all time. But we had some big retirements across multiple sports this year. We had Big Ben in the NFL. There was Federer and Serena. There was Shaun White. There was coaches that retired. But I'm going to start with you, Walker. What was the biggest retirement for you this past year?
I mean, it has to be Serena. I think she's kind of underrated in her own sport, just from I don't think people always fully appreciated the dominance that she had in a sport that it's so hard to be dominant in. And to do it for such a long time, a prolonged period of time, it almost reminds me a little bit, like in ways, of Tiger Woods in the golf game. And so, I don't know, like just kind of watching her hang it up, and honestly, like kind of being sad watching her try to play, because you just knew like it was time. And so that for me was kind of surreal, I guess, because like growing up as someone who quite frankly doesn't care about tennis, like if it was on though, because my parents cared, like she was playing and she was an icon. Like even I sat down and watched it, was like, damn, she's good. Like she's crazy. And so I think losing like that, it's always kind of the biggest one of the year.
I'm with you on the Serena train. I think she's probably the most recognizable female athlete of all time, at least for me. And to see her go out and I agree, Walker, watching those like last couple matches, it was like, man, like I don't know how she's doing this, but like she's going out when she should. And I think she goes down for me as the greatest women's tennis player of all time. And I like the Tiger comparison, because people will say like, well, but the most majors this person has it. And it's like, if we're talking about dominance, like she was so dominant in a sport, as you said, that you don't see dominance in it. And I wanted to go the Federer route, but you can't undisputably say that he's the GOAT, because he's been with two other GOATs at the exact same time in the tennis game with Nadal and Djokovic. So, I mean, both of them were tough to see retire, but for me, Serena just edges it out, because for me, I can't name another player from her era that you could even remotely compare to her. I don't think that there's one out there. No. So that's why I went Serena. Francis, what about you?
Yeah, I also went Serena. So I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I think y'all hit the nail on the head on both of y'all's points. And I just wanted to add on, especially with the Serena and Tiger Woods thing, because, not to go on like a separate tangent, but many people put Serena and Tiger in the same sentence as two African-American athletes who have reached the top of a predominantly white sport. But I think something that I wanted just to give a quick shout out to was Serena and Venus Williams, obviously Serena's sister, their impacts on tennis outside of the tennis court, and how you're seeing a slow but a real influx in African-American tennis players who are reaching the heights of the top of the sport. Naomi Osaka, Coco Gauff, Sloane Stephens, and Frances Tiafoe on the male side. You're seeing genuinely talented African-Americans come up the tennis ranks, and it's awesome. That's awesome to see. And now, look, there are tons of socioeconomic reasons why that same can't be said about the PGA Tour, and not all of that is definitely not on Tiger Woods by himself. That is not an indictment on Tiger Woods. It's not that simple. But the point should be made. that Serena and Venus's impact on tennis in the African American community is fantastic. There's a great article that I encourage all of y'all and everyone listening to this podcast to read. It's a New York Times article entitled "What Serena Williams Means to You," and it's just really great. I'm not going to spoil it, but I think you all should check it out. Her impact is awesome. It's monumental outside of the sport of tennis, and obviously as a tennis player, she's the GOAT. So Serena for me is the biggest.
All right, Mo, bring us home. Is it a Serena sweep, or do you have another one in mind?
Nah, I got another one. I guess so we don't have a Serena sweep, basically. I mean, when
she swept tennis for a decade, so I guess we can go a different route with yours.
Yeah, I mean, my only thing is, I mean, when she retired, like, yeah, she's the greatest player that retired this year when you talk about in their respective sport and you talk about pure greatness. Mine's Big Ben, though. And believe it, I feel like Big Ben gets underappreciated. I really feel like, the couple legal things that he had, and then towards
like he's no for an answer.
Yeah, but he should have hung it up probably sooner than he did. And so that kind of makes you forget, like, you spend so much time saying, like, you need to hang it up, you need to hang it up. You forget how good he is. Like, I'm sure there's people out there who really don't realize this is a 2-time Super Bowl champ. Like, and then I think with the way, like, the Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown and Big Ben breakup when they left Pittsburgh, I think overshadows, like, how good that man was in his career. And when we talk about, like, great quarterbacks in our era, like, we bring up Peyton Manning, we bring up, obviously, Tom Brady. We'll even bring up Drew Brees, and it almost seems like we'll bring up Aaron Rodgers, and, like, Big Ben never –
Russell Wilson.
Yeah, like, we'll bring up Russ before we bring up Big Ben. We're going to get on Russ, but we'll bring up – Big Ben won't get put in those conversations, and I'm not saying he's better than any of them or whatever, but I'm saying, like, he's a 2-time Super Bowl champ. He's top 7 or 8 in pass yards all time. Like, this man really had an elite career. And it got overshadowed by, like, the greatness of Tom Brady, and then you would take Peyton Manning over Big Ben anyways. But I just feel like a guy who he kind of went out, he didn't go out on top, but just he went out underrated in a sense. And I think Big Ben didn't get really a lot of love that he probably should have gotten. Some are his own reasons, and then the drama in Pittsburgh the last few years of his career and him not going out when he should have and kind of prolonging retiring. I mean, just think about it. When we knew he was coming back for last year, we're like, oh my God, bro, like, just hang it up, dude. We've seen your arm has been shot for at least 2 years now. It was going on a third year that we've seen, like, you can't do it at the high level that you once would and kind of ride off as much of a high horse as you can. But I think him retiring was just, it kind of got undershadowed, one, by, like, a Roger Federer and Serena retiring. And then on top of that, like, I think his career gets masked by a lot of the drama.
Can we talk about the fact that Big Ben somehow came out looking the best out of him, Lev Bell, and Antonio Brown?
Literally.
Wow.
Literally. Like, think about everything that he went through, and he's coming out probably looking the best out of that trio.
Not probably.
It takes a lot to sabotage to the point where Big Ben comes out looking the best, but they
I still think that there's something left for Antonio Brown. Like, I think that morally we can probably figure something out. Like, he's probably going to be okay.
Oh, man.
Okay,
boy.
Moving on from that.
Oh, boy.
Let's talk about, there was quite a few breakouts for players this past year. Guys who kind of sprung onto the scene that were maybe good players that took it to a whole new level, or some young guys that maybe had a great run at some point, as Mo switches the graphic, hopefully at some point. But
my bad.
Biggest breakout star of 2022. Now I'm going to start with Francis because I feel like this one's easy, but biggest breakout of 2022.
Yeah, I mean, again, not to be a homer and whatever, but to me, it's Ja Morant. A lot of people, when he won Most Improved, a lot of people were like, wait, wasn't he just Rookie of the Year? How is he Most Improved? And I kind of just want to push back on that idea, just because, yes, winning Rookie of the Year is very impressive. It's a big deal. But there's a lot of Rookie of the Years who haven't really done much with their career. A lot of forgotten Rookie of the Years who haven't done much with their career, they may have had a really good career, but it took time. What Ja Morant did in basically an offseason to go from, not an offseason, but in a very short period of time to go from Rookie of the Year to then being an all-star and being a second-team All-NBA player in such a short period of time, That's really impressive. That's very hard to do in the NBA, in professional sports, period, at such a young age. I think he is, for me, the breakout athlete of this year, and he's only getting better. So for me, it's pretty simple. It's Ja Morant, and y'all may disagree or whatever, but yeah, for me, it's simple.
Okay, Walker, biggest breakout star of the year.
Yeah, based on the chat earlier in the week, y'all wouldn't, or y'all are gonna be surprised, but I mean, I guess the first name that came to my mind was Joe Burrow. Went to a Super Bowl in February, won a bunch of playoff games. This year he's had, not a MVP winning caliber season, but he's going to finish top 5 in voting. And so he's become the face of a franchise in the middle of America. And he's just a legitimate elite quarterback now. He went from, injured rookie to coming back and leading a team to a Super Bowl, and now he's playing at an MVP level. So for me, that's kind of where my mind goes straight to. And I think probably part of that, I'm guilty of it. I talked about it the other day where I was I just think his charisma and almost his swagger and the way he carries himself, makes him so much easier to root for and so much easier to love. And that's why he's probably become such a big story across professional football.
Okay. Mo, where are you going with this one?
So I'm going to stay in the same realm as Walker. I mean, you could go Ja. I ain't mad. Me going different than Ja isn't about I didn't want to go Ja. I just want to
just say it. You hate Ja.
No, I love Ja.
You wanted to say Bam Adebayo. I get it. But
no.
Dude, we get it. Duncan Robinson can shoot.
But believe it or not, though, and Walker's probably he's gonna argue me this later, and he's gonna hate me for it. But I'm gonna go Trevor Lawrence. I think
I thought about it for a second, but I felt like Burrow was better.
Yeah, I mean, yes, Burrow's better, but Trevor Lawrence has an opportunity to take a team who got the number 1 pick, and we know they had all the turmoil last year with the coaching situation. So it's not all on Trevor Lawrence.
Who's their coach?
Yeah, it was Urban Meyer.
Thank you.
He wins national championships, but he ain't winning no Super Bowls. But I gotta go Trevor Lawrence. Right now he's top 10 in yards. He's top 10 in passing touchdowns. He's top 10 in QBR. And he kind of he's coming into his own as the true star prospect that we thought he would be. He has decent weapons. I mean, he's got ETN, who's a dog at running back. Christian Kirk has quietly had a really good season. They could possibly have 2,000-yard receivers. They will have one and one right under it in Zay Jones, but I still wouldn't say
Give that Evan Ingram respect. Give that Evan Ingram respect.
But I'm just saying, and Evan Ingram, he has 3 guys over 700 yards. Evan Ingram is one of them. And so when you look at it, we look like they just put a wide receiver core together. They spent all that money at Christian Kirk, and we laughed. $18 million. He changed the wide receiver market. And I'm not saying what he's done this year has made you look at the contract any different, but he changed the wide receiver market. And I don't think we have much expectations, and they still might turn around, not in the wildful 12-5 record or 13-4, but they could turn around, win the division, and go to the playoffs. And this could be a team who turn around with the emergence of their young quarterback, finally putting it all together for weeks at a time, starting to play very consistent, starting to play really well, where you're in 2 to 3 years, this could be he could join the conversation of a top 5 quarterback in the league in the next 2 to 3 years. By year 5, when he's going to get paid, you're this guy's going to get paid like a top 5 quarterback. He could be a top 5 quarterback at that time. So I think Trevor Lawrence has even quietly, I don't think his breakout so far has even been applauded the way it should, because at the end of the day, he's still stuffed in Jacksonville, but everybody's going to be looking to see what he does in the playoffs if they do end up winning the division and making the playoffs. What seems a little likely with what Tennessee has left on their schedule as opposed to what Jacksonville does. But at the same time, it's just showing Trevor Lawrence love, because we kind of, even though under the circumstances, people was really hard on him and, none of the quarterbacks were ever going to be good and this and that. They weren't going to amount to nothing. And then you start to see Trevor Lawrence kind of separate himself from everybody and be this is the guy that we thought we were going to see coming out of college. So
all it takes to win breakout star of the year is losing a home game to Malik Willis in week 18. Jeez, we're really setting the bar low.
Well, I mean, I could have went the way y'all went, but then it's why not just give someone else?
No, I like the
I'm just giving you a hard time.
Yeah, because you're a Titans fan. I know you wouldn't like it.
I'm not even watching the game tomorrow night, so
I almost went the soccer route. I really wanted to do Erling Haaland his biggest breakout star, but it felt premature because it's really only been like 3 months that he's been doing it at Man City. So I'm going to save that one. I'm actually going to go the NBA route and go Jason Tatum because
You mean God himself?
I mean, to me, that like he's been to an NBA Finals or close to before this Eastern Finals, but what he did against KD, what he did against Giannis, what he did to the Heat, and then going to the finals, and yes, they came up short, but to me, he's starting to get to that superstar status, and
he's there. Personally, I think he's there.
Well, we'll see how the playoffs go
there.
this year.
He's there right now.
I think he's there.
Okay, well, you guys think that
go
he's
ahead.
there. So
Sorry.
you're just making the case for me that he broke out even more. So to me, just the run that he went on, I know he doesn't win MVP, but what he did in the playoffs last year was really special, taking Boston to the finals. And I think he's picking up where he left off. I mean, he's an MVP favorite right now, or one of. And so I think he's my breakout of the year. It pains me still to this day that the Lakers drafted Lonzo Ball over Jason Tatum, but you know, I'm not hurt by it by any means. I love where the Lakers are at right now. So let's cap it off with, well, if we're talking about disappointments, I mean, I just brought up the Lakers. So I'll start us off with my biggest disappointment of the year. It's Cristiano Ronaldo.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Like,
I need to go change my pants. Hold on.
And this is coming from a diehard Ronaldo fan, diehard Man U fan. He comes out looking so bad at the tail end of his career, and he's just not going to be remembered fondly just because even, like, just look at the last 2 months. That's all that it takes, because he was actually good for United last season, but he fell off a cliff. He fell out with the manager, fell out with teammates, both at Man U and with Portugal. Then he has a bad World Cup where he gets replaced by a guy that had barely played any minutes, comes in and scores a hat trick. Then he no-shows against Morocco. And now he's heading to Saudi Arabia to get the bag, but to play irrelevant soccer for the remainder of his days. And I think just how his career is going to be looked back on is just very selfish. He was already a selfish player, but even more so now he's going to be looked at as a selfish guy who threw everyone under the bus because he didn't get his way. And I think he just comes out looking terribly all-time wise from a soccer perspective. So,
And will you watch those Saudi Arabia matches?
no.
Will you be gambling on those matches?
I might. I don't know. Ronaldo might score a hat trick every game.
Anytime goal scorer until he doesn't score.
Yeah, I'll probably bet him to score every single match because I don't know who's
minus
playing
430.
against. Yeah, maybe even multi-goal is like minus 100. Like
probably.
So
one of my favorite World Cup stats is all four of us combined have the same amount of knockout round goals as Cristiano Ronaldo in the World Cup. A big fat 0.
I already felt bad
in his World
putting
Cup
him in there,
career.
and Francis is just piling on. All right, Francis, I'm going to go to you next. Biggest disappointment.
Okay. Biggest disappointment for me, and again, it's kind of just off the top. It's the Dodgers, the LA Dodgers, losing to the Padres.
You're just piling on with the Dodgers.
Yeah, just get it in.
I am. I got to. I mean, to read off a stat, 111 wins last year. They had the best run differential since 1939. Biggest wins differential in terms of a playoff matchup since 1906. They were up 1-0 against the Padres and then lost 3 in a row. It's bad. Like I think the Dodgers collapse against the Padres was kind of just swept under the rug for whatever reason in terms of sports collapses, because it's really bad. They were by far the best team in the Major League Baseball by a country mile. And then they lose to a team that they just killed in the regular season. They won every single regular season series against the Padres, and then they lose against them in the playoffs. This shouldn't have happened. The fact of the matter is that series should not have gone the way it did for the LA Dodgers. It just shouldn't have. And it did. And I think it should be talked about more how disappointing of a baseball team that was. So for me, biggest disappointment of that year, the Dodgers. And weirdly enough, I am a Padres fan. I became a Padres fan in June of this year. But I have an irrational hatred of the LA Dodgers. Like I don't like this team at all. I don't like their fans. I don't like the team. I have no real basis. Has not done anything to me in my life, but I don't like them. So just piling on to their disappointing season.
Okay. Walker, I'm going to go to you next.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a different route, and maybe one that I feel like it's obvious, but also like probably not. It has been talked about, but it's kind of been let go. The Texas A&M football team, preseason ranks number 6 in the country, and then not only that, but they won less games than they were initially ranked. Like as far as than their initial ranking in the country, they went 5-7.
That's nuts.
After being a top 7 preseason team. Off of the number 1 recruiting class in the country. And like, I know recruiting classes take years to kind of develop or whatever, but they were probably one of the 5 most talented teams in all of college football. And they went 5-7 and lost to Appalachian State outright in their own stadium and played a fairly competitive game with UMass. So for me, like to be a brand of that size and to have that much talent, you cannot start October and lose to Mississippi State, Alabama, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Florida, and Auburn all in a row. That just is something that cannot happen, especially when Auburn was being coached by a running back who was a glorified cheerleader. So,
wow,
for me, that's the biggest sports disappointment of the year as far as underachieving expectations.
That one felt personal.
I knew when the thing popped up that was what I was going to say. And I was like, damn, Ken's not going to like that. It's not personal, but like, it's so close to home for me. Like yeah, well, that's all we talk about down here. It's like, damn, did y'all see A&M last week?
Just felt like you didn't need to go quite as far as you did, but you got there.
I don't like them though. Like that's the problem. I don't like them.
It's something about that felt personal. Like you might as well have just wrote "fuck you, Ken" on your forehead. But like, like it's fine. We're still pals at the end of the day. Walker, why don't you end off this, or Mo, end off the great show?
Bro, this is the easiest one, and this is why I wanted to add this. Initially, we weren't going to kill anybody who disappointed this year. Bro, it's Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, he robbed Denver. He robbed the state of Colorado. He made Seattle the happiest people alive, and they kind of appreciated Russell Wilson on his way out, and now they're like, God, we got out of it on time. He made Pete Carroll look like a genius when people were kind of like, why aren't we giving Russell Wilson the money? He's like, God's gift from Earth to Seattle. He won Super Bowl and this and that. Bro, it took him to week 16 to throw as many touchdowns as he has bathrooms in his new mansion in Denver, Colorado. He has 12 bathrooms in his mansion. He has just thrown 12 touchdowns in week 16. He's getting paid what? Almost $50 million. You can't even release him and say, dang, we got to do away with this and start over. And it was a bet because it cost you $100 million next year. So even if the thought around is to cut Russell Wilson, you can't because it's going to cost your team $100 million. And go tell a coach to take a job where I'm already $100 million in the hole in cap space while trying to rebuild a team off a bad move. Everybody, and you guys remember, because there were a couple people in here, Walker, that told me that Russell Wilson makes the Denver Broncos Super Bowl contenders. He got his coach fired. They sucked even worse than with Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. Put that in perspective. The Broncos were a better team with Teddy Bridgewater, who is a backup right now, and Drew Lock, who lost the starting job to Geno, which looks genius. This man, Russell Wilson, he's literally robbed Denver, and he's put him in a place of no return right now. They can't do nobody's going to trade for him. Period, point blank. So you can't even get off the contract. You can't cut him for another 3 years without it being super detrimental to a single offseason or offseason for the next 2 to 3 years. So you are just screwed with sorry behind Russell Wilson and his danger witches that I'm sure he gifted his offensive line from Subway because he couldn't have gave them any other gifts because they don't block for him. So he gave them danger witches, and they're a little spicy. And he made himself cornball of the year on top of that. How are you so bad? And you are cornball of the year with your cringy Subway commercials and your cringy faith family football playing rock and roll and stuff and your crappy commercials that you're in. You literally are just the worst dude of 2022. And I don't think there's no bouncing back from it. Russell Wilson was disrespected by other teams. The Broncos country, let's ride, became the biggest joke ever after teams were beating Denver. Ravens country, let's ride, and this and that. Justin Tucker, a kicker, is clowning you when you were a $50 million quarterback. Bro, you're terrible. You're the biggest disappointment. And it's just the only thing you have going for you is that you got a beautiful family. Other than that, your life for the next 5 years is going to suck because a whole fan base, 2 fan bases are now going to hate you because they're appreciative that they got away from you. And this fan base is going to hate you for the next few years. Your teammates hate you. You got your coach fired. No coach, every coach who wants to apply for the Broncos job and takes an interview is going to have to contemplate whether he can fix Russell Wilson. You're going to sit in the interview process and be asked, do you think you can fix Russell Wilson? If the answer is maybe or no, then you're not getting the job anyway. So whoever gets this job is going to be attached to Russell Wilson, and the success and possibility of ever getting another NFL job is on the back of Russell Wilson. You messed up so many people in your life, around your life, and people who just watch your life on the football field. Yes, he's the biggest disappointment. Sorry, Russell Wilson, but you did it to yourself.
So, Walker, I just want to take this moment
to felt personal, right, Ken?
I want to apologize to you, Walker. That was premature. Mo still had to go. Wow.
Bro, man, we just all threw shots. I hit Mo at Ohio State, and then it just kept going.
I didn't say the wrong thing about Russell Wilson though. Like nothing I said was wrong. I just brought light to how bad of a year he's had.
If he wins the Super Bowl next year, you do realize that your life is over as you know it, right?
I was the only one that didn't take a shot on this show. How is that even possible?
Yeah, Kenneth, you're right.
I'm always the one that takes shots.
But if he turns around and wins the Super Bowl, it will not change his disappointment in 2020. This year happened regardless of what success he has. He could have 3 years of Super Bowls. 2022 still happened. This will not be a bad take years from now because we only talked about 2022. I'm not talking about who's going to be the biggest disappointment of 2023, even though it's going to be him again. But it's only what happened in 2022.
You can't get any worse.
It happened at the end of the day, so he could win a Super Bowl, and it doesn't make me look bad because
the only way that it could get worse is if he downgraded houses and still didn't throw as many touchdowns as bathrooms.
If he got less bathrooms in a house, and he still can't.
Still didn't do it. Yeah, I just wanted to feel modest. We got a 4-bathroom house. Gets replaced. Well, what a great way to cap off 2022. Absolutely roasting Russell Wilson for being cornball of the year and everything else that goes along with it. But Mo, tell the folks where they can find your work at home.
Yeah, you can follow me at Mo_Cheese15. Field Stormers is doing their college football preview. It was pre-recorded, but we're dropping that tomorrow evening, probably at like 5 p.m. Eastern. So look out for that. Up in Flames is going to be doing a college football preview. I still got to text Jeff to see if he's good to go Thursday, but kind of talk. It's going to be more Ohio State centric. If I could get Jeff on, kind of brush over what we think the Michigan TCU game will look like. But as always, go to offtheballnetwork.com for all your sports needs and entertainment. Francis, nice to do a show with you for once. So we got to get back on and do this because I like talking to you. So we got
Francis, great segue. Where can the folks find your work?
You can find my work on offtheballnetwork.com. I have an NBA podcast called The Up and Under. Find that wherever you get your podcasts. I covered the Memphis Grizzlies for SB Nation, Grizzly Bear Blues. So you can find my work there. And also I cover the Memphis Tigers basketball team. You can find those articles on bluffcitynil.com. So got a lot of places.
Walker, what have you got going on?
I've heard rumors that I'll be on Field Stormers tomorrow. I haven't confirmed those yet, but I should be there. So make sure you check that out. And then just kind of continue to check out all the stuff at offtheballnetwork.com. I may have one more project this week. Actually, I'll be on, I think I'm on Tacos and Touchdowns tomorrow night, talking Cowboys Titans. That I'm not going to call it a game. But that's disrespectful to football. But I'll be on there talking about that and some other stuff. So check that out tomorrow. I think we're going at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time tomorrow. yeah, I think that's it. I think I got everything.
Sounds good. You can follow me at HedgePod on all social platforms. Back on January 2nd with shows, as well as Spit and Hedge Betting Talk starts on Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Go check out offtheballnetwork.com as well. A lot of great stuff over there. Go sign up for SeatGeek, all the other great sponsors that we have over at Off the Ball Network. And appreciate all of you guys for hopping on and everyone who tuned in tonight. And we will see you guys next time for the Off the